Welcome to Follow Your Curiosity, where we explore the inner workings of the creative process. I'm your host, Nancy Norbeck. My guest this week is opera singer Dale Travis, who has performed with companies all over the world in a career he never imagined as a child. Dale always loved to sing, but went to school for football. When an injury thwarted that plan, he auditioned for the choir, setting him on an unexpected path. We talk about his surprising leap to opera, how he lets the text and music teach him how to perform a character, the future of opera, and more. And I promise you don't have to be an opera fan to follow along. Here's my conversation with Dale Travis. Dale Travis, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
So I'm curious to hear the story of how did you discover that singing might be a thing that you wanted to do? Is it something you did as a kid or?
Yeah. I mean, I always loved to sing, and as far as I can remember, I mean, even back in early grade school, I remember singing a solo in the Bear Tavern School when I was in either first or second grade. I did the Cuckoo song, Holy, Holy Rock Cuckoo, and led the whole school in that in the auditorium. And then I think in third grade, I sang God Bless America. That was at the grammar school in Pennington. And I don't know, I just always liked to sing and always felt comfortable doing it. And I was always in choirs and did musicals in high schools and things like that. Met really my first inspirational guy, Bob Sine, who was the director of choirs at Hope Valley High School. And, really, I don't know, something clicked with him, and he just, he inspired all of us. And from there, I enjoyed playing football. So I went to Susquehanna University to play football. I got hurt the first scrimmage. My knee got pretty screwed up. So I knew my afternoons were free then. I went down and I auditioned for the university choir thinking, I'll just join that and be a part of that. And at the time I was thinking about being a geology major or something. And the choir director, just after I sang, he's like, you should really consider being a music major. So I decided, okay, maybe I'll give this a shot. And I really had no classical music background. It was just, like I said, singing in choirs and musicals, and had a rock band for a few years. But something took off at Susquehanna, and thank God I got in with a great teacher. And he really steered me in the right direction and said he thought 4 years working with him, he said, I think you could make a career out of this. So he said, I want you to go work with Andy White, who was at the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. And I auditioned there and got in and got a little scholarship, which was great. And I spent 4 more years there as getting my master's degree and an artist diploma. I also got to work with a great opera director, Italo Tayo, who really inspired me as far as really trying to make this opera thing work. And from there, I auditioned for the San Francisco Opera. And they have many different levels of young artist programs. And first, you start out in their Marilla Opera program, which is a summer festival, and that's 10 weeks. So my wife and I, we were married in Cincinnati when I was still studying in Cincinnati. So we said, heck, we'll just up and move to San Francisco and see if this is going to work. So after a Marilla Opera program in the summer, I did 2 national tours with the company, which then was called Western Opera Theater. It no longer exists. But so I did La Boheme and then Don Pasquale, 2 6-month tours all over the United States. And after that, they asked me to be an Adler Fellowship, which is named after Kurt Herbert Adler, which was one of the great maestros of San Francisco for 40 maybe 50 plus years, and I got to work with him a little bit. And from there, just became part of the roster out there and part of the family. And I just celebrated 30 years since my debut out there uh, in 88,
Wow.
1988. So yeah, so I've been very blessed, and things have worked out well, and I've been doing it now professionally for 35 years. So it's been really great, and I give a lot of thanks for all that I've been able to do.
Sure. So when you first heard the idea of being a music major, had anything like that even ever crossed your mind?
No, I had no idea that you could be, a professional musician and make a living at it. I really had no idea. And like I said, I really didn't know anything as far as music theory, music history. So all the kids in my class were leaps and bounds ahead of me, respect. And I struggled the first 2 years, but I kept my grades above water and just kept working hard singing, and luckily it worked out. So, but no, I had no idea you could make a living doing what I'm now doing.
Did your parents freak out at the idea, or were they just like, do what you want to do?
No, my mom was thrilled because she always attended all my stuff, but my dad, he had major reservations, and he really wasn't really convinced for a long, long time. Maybe until I graduated from Susquehanna, and then he had a sidebar chat with my teacher, and he said, "Do you really, really think this guy can pull his career off?" And he said, "Yes, I really do believe it." And I think my dad finally got on board, but um, it's funny because I remember as a little kid, he would always play like Mario Lanza and stuff in his truck or whatever, as well as what he liked, mostly country music. But
Hmm.
he always had sort of this thing with opera, and but yeah, he took a while to come around, but he finally did. So
Do you have any idea what convinced him?
man, I'm not really sure. I just think the more I kept going with it, because I left the house when I was 17 and went to college, and it just kept building, and building. And I basically tell people that I kind of went to school twice, because I did another 12 years of sort of graduate work and apprenticeships and everything. And you know I um, I just think after that amount of time, still climbing the ladder, he was like, well, maybe, yeah, maybe this is going to work. And once I started getting paid, a decent salary for
Hmm.
he, I think he got on board then.
Yeah, I think when you
Uh,
manage to make money at it, usually that'll do it if nothing else has.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. But no, they were both very supportive. My mom, especially, she was totally thrilled right from the start, right from the get go. But that finally came around.
so it must have been, I mean, you said that you were kind of behind for the first 2 years. It must have been an interesting challenge to shift mental gears like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I always tried to challenge myself, and I knew that this was probably the biggest challenge in a musical career, to actually try and sing opera. So I don't know. Somehow I just had a good work ethic instilled in me by my parents, and they said, no matter what you do, just be the best you can be at it, and you'll have success. So I don't know. I just kept plugging away at it and working hard, and practicing 4 or 5, 6 hours a day, and just
Yeah.
keeping it to the grindstone. And yet, there's so much to learn. I mean, it's the musical vocabulary, it's all the languages, and then you've got to solidify a good technique, which can take quite a while, especially for a bass. We're the last ones really to mature in the voice categories. So that took. I really didn't feel comfortable singing until I was about 40, and then things started to really in. But yeah, so it's something that you just have to persevere. and keep working away at it. And um, hopefully, with your preparation and stuff, you get your foot in the door somewhere, and then they see your work ethic and your discipline, and they say, okay, we'll hire you to do XYZ next season. So it just kind of snowballs. But you gotta get your opportunities when you can and make the most of them. So
Yeah, that's a long incubation period, though. I mean, that
yeah.
you have to have had doubt along the way that, am I really getting anywhere? Is this doing what I want it to do?
Yeah, I mean, I did, and I always tell young singers now. I said, just keep your nose to the grindstone and just keep working, and know in your heart that if you worked hard and you did your best, that's all you can expect of yourself at this point in time in your career. So it's uh, it's a good thing for being a bass because in every opera there's always going to be these little bass roles. So you could be the father, the priest, the policeman, and there's all these great little roles that they got to fill with basses. So I just tell the guys, don't start off as Boris Godunov or Don Giovanni or anything. Look at these smaller roles and get your feet firmly planted, and then you'll grow and develop, and then you'll know where your voice is, and what it can handle and what it can't. And you'll know what kind of voice, what kind of roles you'll be able to do. But I always tell them, I said the first 10 years you just have to learn how to survive, and these little bass roles in all of these operas are a great way to survive. And I did countless numbers of them. So it's just something that you just have to commit to, you know. But there's a bit of humility involved in all of that. But you have to start somewhere, and even the greatest bases of our time started out as the border guard, or like I said, the policeman or the priest or whatever, and then from there, hopefully things will take off.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I have to think that some of those roles had to have had little surprises in them somewhere, whether it was that you could do something you didn't realize you could do, or that you learned something from it that you never would have guessed you would learn.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's not only that, but you just get more comfortable with being on stage, and being comfortable with conversing in different languages, singing. So it all, like I said, it gets your feet firmly planted in the ground. But you gotta start somewhere, and it's important to go slow too, because if you skyrocket the first couple years you're there, you got to be very careful, because the only way you go from there is down. So uh, just be careful and go slow, and don't take on too much too soon, and you work your way up. But um, it's an important thing to try to remember, if you want to have a lasting career. Otherwise, it can be blown out of the water in 5 years, which I know a lot of people that have gone that route, unfortunately. But so it's part of the gig, and it's extremely demanding. So you have to be really solid with your technique, and know yourself, what you can and can't do, and uh, just try to be patient about it all, and just keep working hard.
Yeah. So you made a really good point a couple minutes ago about you have to learn the languages, you have to learn the music, you have to learn all of that, and you also have to learn how to be on stage. Had you done any kind of acting or anything like that even before you suddenly landed in music major land?
Um, I always felt comfortable on stage, and doing musicals and stuff. I just thought I just had a good time with it, and I had a blast doing it, and I never had an issue with performing for people for some strange reason, even as far back as I can remember. So uh, for me, there was a different technique involved with opera, though, because as I said, working with Maestro Tayo in Cincinnati, he really honed everybody in on that. Everything is related to the music and the text in the score, and you'll find every impetus of thought in that score. Composer uh, wrote this work of art, and it was up to us to unearth all of the treasures in it and to use them and look at them. And that was your inspiration for how you acted on stage and how you moved and what your relationships were with each character. So and they're all in this little treasure book called a music score. But you have to unearth it and tear it apart and then put it back together again so that it makes sense in your head to be able to act accordingly. Um, so that was a huge technique for me to learn in Cincinnati, and you know, I, his his career was legendary. It was over 50 years, and he was one of the premier bassists in the world in the 1900s. So I mean, I learned it straight from the horse's mouth how to work and how to sing and look at the score and know that if you study it and understand it, it will guide you in the right direction and how to how to just be on stage, you know, and be believable. So I I I learned so much from him. It was really wonderful. But that that was a whole new thing for me to base everything on what was in front of you in the music score. So, I don't see a lot of that as much anymore. It's sort of a maybe an older fashioned kind of a style of approaching how to act on stage. But no matter what sort of production you're thrown into, that is always the terra firma. That nothing changes in the score, and everything exists in the score. They can stage it, you know, in a toy factory or you know in a lobby of a hotel, but the constant is always the music and the words. So as long as you react accordingly, they can put you in any situation because you're still going to say and sing things the same way and react accordingly to what the bass score and libretto is. So I think that's the most important thing, especially when you're first starting out, and that just makes you all the more comfortable if you know in your heart and your mind exactly what each scene is about and what each piece is about. I mean, you can rely on that, and it works. It just flat out works.
Can you give us an example of how you might break something down to figure out, you know, when you say everything is in the score and in the words?
Well, the first thing that I like to do, I like to tear it apart. I won't even look at the music at first. I will take the libretto and I will translate it, and not only my part, but everybody's part, because to act is to react. So if you're in a scene with somebody, you've got to know exactly what they're saying to you and why they're saying it and how they're saying it in order for you to react accordingly it within the scene. So I just break it down, put the music away, and I just look at the libretto and I try to, if it's an opera in Italian or German or French or whatever, try to recite the lines so that they are clear and are understood in a idiomatic way. You know, you might just toss something off or might say something serious, but you have to know exactly what's in front of you in order to sing it correctly and with the right emotion. So I make sure that I've got the libretto and the thought process basically and the story down pat. That's the first thing to do. And after that, I'll go to the music and I might put the words to it, but what I want to do is look at the score and see how the melody is treated, where I need to make certain vocal adjustments, and then I'll slowly put the words in with it to feel comfortable vocally, and then I'll take it to my teachers or whatever, whoever I'm working with at the time, or a coach or whatever, and we'll go through it in that way. And that once you have the words and the music and you're comfortable with it, then there's certain things in the score as well that sometimes um, a composer who was extremely detailed, like say Puccini. I mean, there are things in the score that he wrote specifically on how you are supposed to sing this certain passage, or he might say, this is where this character uh, um, comes out of a certain door, or is crossing here, or Strauss did the same thing, Puccini. So a lot of mm, composers in that time frame really gave you a lot of clues. It's where like Handel or Mozart, there wasn't much there, but boy, the great libretti of Da Ponte with Mozart, you knew exactly where each character stood and what their relationships were. So you knew exactly, once you studied the words and you knew exactly what was happening in the translation, then you could act the part. But for me, I guess a lot of people consider me sort of a singing actor, and for me, it's important to first study the text and to be committed to that, and to know how to uh, project it so that it's understood to the audience, so that they can be entertained. If I know what I'm saying and I know how I'm reacting to everything, then they can relate in the same way, and understand exactly what's going on. Even if they don't speak the language, they know exactly the relationship you have if you're acting in the right manner. Thankfully, now we have super titles or subtitles on the back of seats in front of you in theaters, so what the text is, and so if you've got somebody on stage that's even heightening that, then they can enjoy that whole moment with you. But that's how I like to tear it down. The only other thing I would say is you have to also, I once I'm familiar with it, I'll start listening to recordings and just listen to like different instrumentation that the composer uses. And you walk differently if you're being accompanied by a trumpet than if you're being accompanied by a bassoon. There's just
Mm.
the different character flavor there. So if you hear that a little bassoon or something, then you just might walk a little funny or something. It just you have to marry your movement with, also look at the instrumentation and think, why did he write that line for that instrument? And just try and motivate your movements or your thought process as to why. Like Britten was great at that. Benjamin Britten, he would use all these funny little oboe lines or whatever, and I just found it extremely interesting. But that's a whole nother layer that you can lay on it once you're comfortable with the singing and the libretto. It just there's like I said, it's a treasure, but you got to unearth everything in there and kind of put it all together and make it work for you. So there's many levels that you can go to once you establish that relationship with the score. But just look at it, because my Tayo always used to say, he'd pick up the score and he'd go, "This is the Bible. Base everything on that you do on the stage." So I took it to heart.
So there are two questions that are coming to mind for me right now. One is, have you ever had a director ask you to do something that's the complete opposite of something that you came up with? And the
Absolutely.
other is, I'm sure that if you've done the same part more than once, you've found different things in different readings. So I'm wondering if you can tell us about both of those.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember many times working with the director. He would stage a scene where it had absolutely no relationship to the text with what was going on. A very famous example was I worked with Harry Kupfer from the Komische Oper in Berlin, and we did Cozy fan tutte, something I'd done previously many times and was very comfortable with. And they set it in this laboratory where everything was on a spinning wheel, and it was like I was like the mad scientist, and these were my specimens that I was trying to in intoxicate with different feelings and emotions with other people. And every movement had absolutely nothing to do with what you were saying. You were just trying to lay out this laboratory in a way that people were being affected in weird and demented ways. And I really struggled with that because it went against everything that I knew and learned in the score. I mean, I did it because otherwise I would have been fired.
Right.
But but the thing was that the audience just absolutely loved it, and I couldn't come to grips with why they were just so enamored with this strange production. But it was so far beyond anything that I had experienced and dealt with, and it was just so out there. I really struggled with it for a long time, but we did it, and it was fine. But I mean, and then so you know, many years later, I got a call from him, and he said, "Would you please come to Berlin and do this? Our Alfonso is sick, and you are only one of two or three people in the world that know the blocking and come and do this strange production." So I was like, "Sure, I'll come and do it. I'm free. I can do it." So I went to Berlin for a week and did the show, and I suddenly realized that in Germany they do all their productions in German. So
Oh,
I only knew, I only knew the role in Italian. So I told them, I only could, and they said, "It's fine, just come, and we'll work on it." So the maid, the character Despina and Alfonso, they're constantly talking and chatting and figuring out how they're going to lay the next scene for the lovers to switch partners. So she was singing her stuff in German, and I would look at her and go like that, and then I answer her in Italian, and the audience was just breaking up laughing so hard, but they were like, "Yeah, this is great, this is great, this is so weird, we love it, we love it, we love it." But just stuff like that just happens, and in an emergency situation, you just got to throw your hands up and jump in and hope it works out. But um, uh, I guess it's just all part of the career. And the second part of your question, I can't remember.
was what you've discovered on doing roles multiple times that you might not have found the first time?
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing too, because each and every time it's a different situation, whether it's a different production, a different conductor, and different colleagues that you're singing with at the same time. So some somebody might throw a line at you you've never heard in that particular way before or thing, and you suddenly realize, is that what that means, and how do I react to that then? Or the director will say something to you that you had never even thought of before, and think about it, and you're like, maybe I don't agree with all of it, but I can take a piece of what he said and use it. So in a lot of ways, I always tell young singers never to just balk at any direction right off the bat. I said, just try to digest it, be like an oyster, filter out the bad, and just grab that little nugget that you can use in your performance, and you build those little nuggets as your career goes on, and all these little tricks and things that you can incorporate and do in a effective way. But it's something that you develop and you learn. So a lot of times, if you're an oyster, and you can sort of filter out, but at least do one little thing that they ask, then they're happy with that, and they'll accept that, and hopefully you have a camaraderie at that point where they respect what you're trying to do, you're respecting what they're trying to do, and so it works. But I mean, I've been in multiple situations where it's like this, especially um, um, a lot of times with have to go there, but tenors and sopranos are like our racehorses of our of our whole world. So they can be a little bit temperamental and flighty and say, no, I learned it and I only can do it this way. So ultimately the conductor or the director has to sort of respect that and say, okay, but maybe if you think about what I said, maybe, a week or two down the road when we're rehearsing, you might think about maybe incorporating that if you feel a little more comfortable. But I mean, there's a lot of artistic differences going on as collaboration. So I always try to be respectful and humbly do whatever they ask. I always try to go it that way first. And then if I find that it's just not working for me, or a certain director or direction is just too physical, then I have to say I've tried your way for a couple of weeks now, and literally I cannot sing the next phrase if I do this. So is there some way I can just kind of alter it to calm it down a little bit so that I can sing what I need to sing? And usually they're totally fine with that. But as long as you try what they ask initially, and then just say, I'm really struggling with this. Can I modify it? They'll be like, sure. 9 times out of 10, absolutely. Conductors are a little bit different. Sometimes they are very taskmaster and exactly how they want it sung and how they want it delivered and stuff. But so, again, you kind of have to do what they request, and hopefully, over a period of time, it all works out, but not always. So there's always a little bit of that. And it's happened to me a few times, and, it's frustrating, but you're not always going to have 100% cooperation. Just, like anything else, it just doesn't exist. So you got to roll with it and say, this is going to be a job.
Mm-hmm.
This particular gig is going to be a job, and I just got to do what I can and just get it done. And unfortunately, it happens a lot. I mean, I can count maybe one hand the times in 35 years where everything just went just so perfectly, because there's so many different factions coming together to try to put this production on, this piece. It's not just the conductor and the director, it's the orchestra and the stage hands and the technical things that are flying around. I mean, there's a lot going on, and it's for it to all come together is really something special. And when it does, it's the greatest art form in the world. There's no doubt in my mind. When it's perfect, it's just so magical. But that's like Olympus, and
Mm-hmm.
it happens, but maybe just in certain aspects of the production or the performances. The tenor will just be incredible or something like that, or but maybe a piece of machinery didn't work or whatever. But
Oof.
there's always that. So all we can do is just try our best and hope it works. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be artistic differences, no matter what the situation is. But like I said, I always just try to do what they ask, and maybe it'll be great, and I'll be inspired by what they're telling me to do and what they're thinking about and what angle they're coming from, and I'll be like, I can really use that to do XYZ on stage, and I'll say, thank you, that's a great, absolutely, I'll do that. That's a great idea. So just,
Yeah, I have this image in my head of like, I don't know how many times it's typical to end up redoing the same role in an opera career, but kind of have this image in my head of like starting out with the uncut diamond the first time. And then every time you're adding a facet onto it because somebody's asking you to do something different with it, or you're finding something different, or you're interacting differently with someone else. So
yeah.
by the time you've done it 5, 10 times, it must be a much richer portrayal just because you've been kind of bouncing off of all of these other things.
Exactly right. And each, each situation and each time you approach it, something's always going to be a little different. But like you said, it's going to be another little facet to your performance. And I've done, some of these roles now over 150 times. So I'll come into a poem and do it, and the director will just look at me and he'll go, "So you've done this a few times, huh?" "Yes, I have." He said, "Well, I really have nothing to give you." He said, "So let's just, we'll move on. And, when we need you, come back, in a day or two, and we'll do the scene again. And, maybe you could do this." And I'll be like, "Sure. No, not that's a great idea. Why not?" So, yeah, I mean, there are some singers that, basically they're known for one role their whole life, and they'll do it a couple hundred times, easy. So for me, Bohem and Tosca, I've done well over 100 times in my career, and you know every nook and cranny in that score, and just what needs to happen when for it to work. But like I said, you're going to be thrown in different productions and situations that you kind of shake your head at first, but ultimately you make it work because you have all that background that you can feed off of and incorporate, in the back of your mind. Okay, well, this he wants this, so I know that if I, you remember all your experiences, and you can build on that. Yeah, it definitely helps. So
Keeps you from getting bored too.
yeah, well, exactly right, and I can pretty much do whatever I want on stage in some of those roles like that. And some things they'll just love, and other things they'll go, I don't think that's so. I'll just keep throwing stuff at the wall, and if they like it, we'll keep it. And if not, I got 50 more things I can offer, so
Mhm.
it's just up to them what's going to work in their mind and in their vision. But yeah, I mean, after doing this for so long, you kind of have that wealth of material in the back of your head, and you go, yeah, I remember what I did in Toulouse, or I remember what I did in Tokyo with that, and I remember, yeah, okay, so it just it depends on the situation, but you have all of that memory to just go back to, and rely on what you did in the past, and what worked and what didn't. You know, that's just as important. So
You mentioned how in Germany they do all their operas in German, regardless of what they were written in.
most of the regional houses do that now. Like some of the higher level stuff in Germany, they will do stuff in the original language, but most of the regional companies, it's all German. So yeah, it depends. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm just wondering. You mentioned, doing a show in Tokyo. Is there? I'm sure that there have to be cultural differences, even when it's the same show that you've done in London or New York or wherever. When you go to a place like Tokyo, or is it not as different as I might guess?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's the Bible is the Bible, and we've got the music and the words, and basically they're, especially in Japan, they are very um, forthcoming in doing things traditionally. I mean, now there'll be times I did a votsek in Matsumoto for Seiji Ozawa's summer festival, and here we go. The production team was from Germany, and I knew them. I worked with them in San Francisco, but they had this vision that everybody in the show was going to be in this costume that made them look like a giant Hershey Kiss, a vanilla Hershey Kiss. Every single character was a gigantic Hershey Kiss, and you're trying to
Wow.
roll, and it was just bizarre. But it depends what the production is that the company hires the production team to do, and they want to put it on this way. And the ultimately the company that hires people, they have to look at what the designs and things are going to be before they say, yes, we'll put on this show. Because otherwise, if you don't, you'll get stuck with Hershey Kisses going around the stage all night. I'm hoping that they looked at the design and went, okay, yeah, we could do this. This will be interesting. Yes, of course. But there are moments where things are so bizarre. You just, like I said, you have to put your head down. I mean, it's it's one of the greatest pieces of the 20th century, Berg's Vodsek, and any chance I get to do it, my God, it doesn't matter. You want to dress me in a Hershey kiss? That's how great the score is and the music is, and drama is just so. I mean, it's so. You're just by the end of it, it's like a giant tidal wave just knocked you right over. You're just blown away by it. That's one of those special operas. But yeah, you know, they are just. I've had nothing but fantastic experiences over there, and the people are so nice and so appreciative of you coming and doing what you do. And I've had just wonderful times there. I was supposed to go again this past year, but the pandemic hit, and so I mean, live theater has been shut down now since.
Yeah.
So hopefully, things will bounce back soon, but probably be one of the last venues to come around like a large stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Sports fans. It's just going to be a while. So, but yeah, I've had nothing but great times in Japan. Really, just lovely people. Really. So they're pretty much traditionalists. They don't get crazy except that one show. One show was nuts, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do this, really? Okay. Anyway, so it's so funny because after that I was working in Chicago, and I put a picture up on the bulletin board in the artist lounge, and I said, if anybody can tell me the name of this opera, I'll give you $100. And nobody knew what the heck it was. I had thousands of guesses, and I was like, nope. Finally, what is it, Dan? What is it? And I went, Vodsek. And they went, huh? I said, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's always a different experience every time. That's why it doesn't get boring, and if you're lucky enough to do it for so many years, there will always be something new and challenging. That's why it doesn't get old ever. Things keep changing, like I said, the director, the conductor, the production, the house, the artists you're working with, it's just always in the mix. So each one's a new experience, even if you've done it 150 times.
You had mentioned the mad scientist staging of the one show, and I know, like, I'm much more conversant in Shakespeare than I am in opera, but they do this with Shakespeare too, where they'll take Two Gentlemen of Verona and they'll set it as Two Gentlemen of New York, or whatever. And I'm just wondering what you think about that. Does it work? Does it not work?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But yeah, I'm much more of a traditionalist. I mean, when they stage Rigoletto in a urinal, I mean, it's mind blowing as to what they're thinking and how is this going to work. And I've seen countless productions like that, and I don't like them. I don't like them. But, like I said, it's a job, so you got to put your head down and do it. But I'm much more of a traditionalist. But maybe I'm just an old fart. I don't know, but I like things to follow as the composer wished them to be. And it's so funny because, when you do these traditional productions like in San Francisco or Chicago, and you have people coming to see the show from Germany or from Spain or somewhere, and they go, thank God I finally get to see a traditional Traviata because we don't see that anymore. And I was, I would go, see, that, I mean, that really speaks to the people and to follow what the genius of the composer and librettist had in mind. I don't know. I much prefer that route than you know running around in diapers or whatever. I don't know.
I have to admit, I heard a couple of years ago that I don't remember which company it was, and I don't remember the opera, but they set it like Star Trek,
Oh
and I know it's up on YouTube. So for anybody listening who's curious, I will find it and put it in the show notes. But I can't deny I am kind of curious to watch that one.
yeah, yeah. I haven't heard of that, but I don't doubt it for a second that it happened, that it occurred. And hey, if that's your cup of tea, God bless. Go and enjoy. At least you're experiencing the music in the theater, and if that's something that you like, that's fine. It's like if you like to drink wine, great. If you like to drink beer, that's fine too. Whatever you like is fine because there's something for everybody in the arts. Absolutely,
That is true.
absolutely. So, um,
So what do you think about, I know even before the pandemic, a lot of local opera companies have closed or struggled. I don't know how it looks from larger companies, but I'm curious what you think about the future of opera and connecting with younger audiences, things like that.
that's a biggie. That's really a biggie because like I said, for me, having done it 35 years now, that the 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 general amount of people are like me, a lot of gray in the audience. They are really, really trying though to get younger people involved, and they're doing umpteen amount of things like San Francisco Opera is just trying to get people involved from a younger age because they see the writing on the wall. I mean, 80% of the people that are coming to the theater for opera are 80.
Hmm.
So it's a very tricky thing. Maybe some of the more exploratory companies, the summer festivals and things will do things more geared towards younger audiences. And I mean, I remember even like in Chicago, they did a Handel Julius Caesar like it was Bollywood. So like every piece of a Handel aria was choreographed and just like you,
Wow.
and it was so cool. And I was like, this is really neat, and this is how you're going to relate to a younger art audience and stuff. But I've never seen anything like that in my life, and but it was. I have to say, I loved it, and it worked. So
On paper, those are two things I would not have thought would go together.
exactly right. And I was like, this is. There's no freaking way you could sing this handle difficult handle stuff and just be dancing like you're in a Bollywood movie. It's just like can't happen. But in a way, the traditionalist and stuff. You know, for me, yes, but I think they're reaching out for a little bit more contemporary productions and things to bring in younger crowds and younger audiences, and it's important because I don't know, if it's gonna. I hope to God it does, but I don't know the future. I, I I just don't know if it's gonna work or not. I sure hope it does. And by God, I mean I work with young artists all the time, and they're sure hoping it does. Because they're devoting their every every moment of their life trying to perfect it the best they can and try to have a career. So and you're right. I mean, a lot of smaller companies now have been devastated by this, and I don't. Who knows if they're going to be able to come back at all? I don't know, but hope springs eternal, and I guess you just have to look at it that way and say it's going to last because, like I said, it's one of the greatest art forms on the face of the earth when it clicks, and there's no other experience like it. It's what the Germans call a Gesamtkunstwerk, where all the different factions of art come together, um, music and voice and dance, and it's all there. So it's a hopefully it's something that's going to keep going on. I really hope so. But it's yeah, that's a tough one to to look at your audiences and go, I would love to see another 50% younger crowd in here. I in my experience, it's happening regionally a lot more than in the bigger houses, but so there, that's where hope springs eternal. I think in the regional companies that are doing these different productions and things. I see a lot more younger audience there, which is great. So maybe they'll continue that trend and rebuild a whole new audience for opera. I hope it happens. Like it's like in Santa Fe or St. Louis, even those very established places, you'll see a younger crowd come in for those shows. But like the bigger houses like Chicago and the Met and L.A., it's yeah, the percentage is quite high of the older generation that have grown up with it and love the art form. So it's a tough thing to tackle, I think, for all companies now, especially in America, because we're not subsidized
Yeah.
like they are in Europe. So in a way, you kind of gotta be careful when you try to expose things to a newer audience and you try to do things that are a little bit more contemporary that might rock the boat, with the older crowd who are basically paying the bills
Mm-hmm.
and funding the company. So, and it's a fine line with how you want to go and how you can relate that. But um, so I don't know. Like I said, I sure hope it lasts and it works and we do start to pull in a younger audience and I think it's starting to happen regionally. I see a lot more younger crowds there, like in Minnesota or Virginia or Boston. I mean, I've seen younger people at those. So well, hopefully,
Keep fingers and toes crossed.
yeah. In a way, I try to have a positive outlook about it.
Yeah. It is an interesting conundrum for all of those reasons.
It is, and I don't know if it's just opera. I think maybe classical music in general. I mean, look at like the all the orchestras that have had to fold.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the audiences like they used to. So I don't know. I really don't know.
It's interesting because I know, when I was a kid, I went through the whole I'm I don't want to listen to classical music. I want to listen to top 40 radio. And part of that was because I grew up in a classical only household. So,
Oh, wow.
it's like, oh, I want to listen to something different.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
guitar and drums and stuff. But I always still loved, you know, big what's the word I want? Like cinematic kinds of things. I would still listen to stuff like that. And then when I got to Bucknell, which I know you know where that is because
Yeah.
it's right there by Susquehanna.
Right down the road.
um, I auditioned for the chapel choir and I sang for Bill Payne. And so, got to do amazing things with him. And so it was like, I don't know, I kind of worked my way back around to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you haven't had a background, I mean, my mother will happily tell you the story of my brother falling asleep at the symphony concert and snoring, and when we were kids, because
I've
they
heard
would
that.
take us to the symphony concert, you know. But
Yeah. Yeah.
if you haven't had that, I don't know how you would necessarily find it unless you went to see a movie and happened to notice the score and wanted to go get a copy of the CD or something. I'm not sure how you'd
Right.
get back there.
Right. 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 And a lot of our, I have to say, a lot of our contemporary composers now are doing music scores. You know, they're not really writing for the theater as much. So that's a whole nother faction of maybe, you know, some really great artists going that route rather than live theater too. But you know, then you've got somebody like Lin Manuel Miranda that just writes an incredible piece, and suddenly everybody is totally galvanized to the theater, like, you know,
Yeah.
it just, you know, it blows people's minds, you know, when it's happening in front of them live, and it's just like this is just it's magic, it's magical, you know. So yeah, live music.
Yeah.
I hope, I hope and pray, but it's a struggle. You know, I don't know. Classical music, I love it. My family, our whole family we're all musicians. So, you know, we're on board. Yeah. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think there are plenty of people who are, but whether or not they go out and, actually see a show or hear a concert rather than watching it on TV or listening to the DVD or the CD or whatever,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
streaming it on Spotify now, is another question. Though I know my brother and his family live up in Montclair, and there is a Montclair orchestra, and they do a lot that's just geared for kids. I went to a concert with them last year that was great fun with my nephews, so if they keep doing stuff like that, maybe people will bring their kids.
I mean, early in my career, I did a lot of that stuff. Like they would have a special showing on one of the final dress rehearsals, and they would bring all the school kids in to experience the opera, you know, and they did that umpteen times in San Francisco and Chicago and even in Santa Fe. They would bring, you know, the kids in from the pueblos and have them experience, you know, a night at the opera and whatnot. And so that what a great
Yeah.
I I never was exposed to anything like that as a kid. You know, I never saw an opera going from school to go see something like that. That you know, so those kind of programs are fantastic, and that I think that's where it needs to start. You know, at the ground level, right there, and get them exposed to it, and maybe you know a dozen or so will go, man, that's neat. I really want to try and do that. And, you know, pick up an instrument or play the piano or something and just fall in love with it. Yeah, the exposure is really, really important. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think most people who think they don't like classical music are just afraid that they don't understand it.
Yeah, yeah, and which is why I think opera is so great because you know if they're given if they just give it a chance, you know, and something clicks where they just thought, man, the production and stuff was so like I remember my dad going to my debut at the Met and he sat there and he was blown away by just the enormity of it all, you know, and just but you know I don't know if you're just give it a chance, you know, like anything else, you might really dig it. I don't know, you know, or maybe you'll go, that was enough. But I would say to people, if you're going to go to a comic opera. Don't go to a 6 hour Wagner opera. That is not going to be what you want to start off with. So go to a Barber of Seville or an Elixir of Love or you know something like that that's a little more light and just a little bit more fun and you know there's still going to be great music but and they'll be short, they'll be like 2 hours, 2.5 hours rather than, 5. So that would be my one thing I would ask. You're going to try it, go to something like La Boheme, or Barbara of Seville or something like that, where you can have fun. And you'll go, hey, man, Bugs Bunny used that music. Isn't that? So, there's all that. But,
yeah, definitely. Hey, I recognize that from
yeah.
5. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that seems like a good place to stop. But thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
That's our show for this week. My thanks to Dale Travis and to you. Do check out the show notes for links for some of Dale's performances and the Star Trek version of Mozart's Abduction from the Seraglio. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Thanks so much. You can find show notes, the 6 creative beliefs that are screwing you up, and more at fycuriosity.com. I'd also love for you to join the conversation on Instagram. You'll find me at fycuriosity. Follow Your Curiosity is produced by me, Nancy Norbeck, with music by Joseph McDade. If you like Follow Your Curiosity, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. It really helps me reach new listeners. See you next time.